Welcome to the Second Line Show. I'm Nola Nash. Let's let the good times roll. Welcome to the Second Line Show. Like I said, I am your host, Nola Nash. We have got some fun authors with us today. We're talking creepy books, horror, and all things spooky with Elgin Williams, Christine Gabriel, Elise Lee Goldenberg, Juliana Fizz, and Michael Sammerdijk. Welcome to the show, guys. Glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to let you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves and what your books are. And then we're going to talk about writing things that are a little bit out there and why nice people do it. Elgin, why don't you start us off with some of the things that you've got going on?
I write science fiction, fantasy, urban fantasy type stuff, magical realism. I wrote a book that was published by Panda Moon Publishing. That's titled Fried Windows in a Light White Sauce. As you can tell from the name, it's an unusual book. And while I was waiting for the edits to come back on that book, I started writing another series. The first book in that series is Becoming Superman. It's about an eight-year-old kid who talks with a lisp because he bit the tip of his tongue off in a playground accident. And his best friend is a girl that's a little bit bigger than he is, and she doesn't take any crap from anybody. So when the main character, Will, gets bullied at school, she defends him. So she's a little badass. And I've got another book in that series coming out this fall. The second book in that series is already out. It's called Homer Underby. And the third book is going to be called Superheroes. And the whole premise of that series is that the kids are learning that they have superpowers. And of course, they live in a town called Normal, Illinois.
Normal, Illinois, where strange things happen. Christine, tell us about Crimson Moon and Crimson Forest.
Hi guys, I'm Christine Gabriel. I am the author of the Crimson Chronicles series. Crimson Forest is the first book in the series. Crimson Moon is the second, and Crimson Tears is on its way. Basically, it's a paranormal horror book. There is a little bit of romance in there, for all those romantic people out there. Basically, it follows the story of 18-year-old Angelina Adams. Her father goes missing in the mysterious Crimson Forest, which is pretty deadly. There's some deadly crimson moss in there and some supernatural beings. So I hear it's pretty good.
I agree. I think it's pretty good too. Mr. Sammerdijk, introduce yourself to the folks, please.
Okay, my name is Mike Sammerdijk. I write mostly horror and fantasy with some associated nonfiction. I have one horror trilogy that I'm working on, Tales of Kurgania. Kurgania is an imaginary East Central European country home to vampires and werewolves. The first book in that, Land Beneath the Shadows, sort of is like structured like the Martian Chronicles. It takes place between the death of Attila the Hun and the fall of communism. So you have 22 short stories set in that time span, sort of filling you in on the historical development and ups and downs of Kurgania. For associated nonfiction, I have a book out called The Horrible Possible and The Horrible Impossible, which is a collection of essays on the horror movie in the 20th century. The quote is from, title is a quote from Todd Browning, who's the director of 1931 Dracula and Freaks. Also, I write about cartoons. Earlier this year, I published Wascally Wabbit, which is a history of Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny turns 80 this year. Woody Woodpecker also turns 80 this year. And before the end of the year, I'm bringing out Guess Who, which is a history of Woody Woodpecker.
Awesome. What a kaleidoscope of stuff that you write, Mike. I love that. Everything from horror films to Bugs Bunny.
Mm-hmm.
Fabulous. Awesome. Miss Juliana, introduce yourself, please, my dear.
Okay, so my name is Juliana Fus, and as you can tell by my accent, English it's not my first language. I was born and raised in Bucharest, Romania, and I write a mixture of paranormal, science fiction, fantasy, with some romantic elements to it. I have already published the Bloodline trilogy, 3 books: Bloodline Origins, Destinies, and Revelations. And of course, they're vampires. But I wanted to bring my own twist to it. So my vampires are of alien origin. So they were made by aliens over 2,000 years ago. It is quite different. How they say, outside the box. In this case, I think I crushed that box, burnt it, and spread the ashes in the wind. They're vampires with all kinds of superpowers. Well, they're alien descent, so they gotta be different from the rest. My new, recent release is Adania Tebetos and the Dark Mask with DLG Publishing. This one is a science fiction twist on Beauty and the Beast. It's a whole series, a multi-authored series, and each author chooses a fairy tale to do a twist on it, whatever they want. So you will have horrors in this series, you'll have contemporary, mine is a science fiction, there'll be many more to come.
The covers for that series were gorgeous, by the way. I was looking at those online. They are beautifully done.
The Bloodline or the Twisted series?
The Twisted series. I mean, the Bloodline are really cool too because they're just red. I mean, I love that. It's like blood red.
Well,
But the Twisted series, they're gorgeous. They're really pretty covers.
and since I wrote Adania, it inspired me to start writing a spin-off series off of it. So every single member of our family is gonna get their own book. So there'll be 4 more books coming out. One before the end of this year, and the rest probably next year.
Wow, you got a lot going on. I love it. And Miss Elise Lee Goldenberg, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Panda Moon Publishing that I have yet to see in person. So glad you're here. Tell us all about what you've got going on.
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to do this.
Thank you.
What I have 3 YA fantasy series with Panda Moon. I have the Dybbuk Scrolls trilogy, which is based in Jewish folklore. So you have girls from our world getting their lives kind of turned upside down by the knowledge that Dybbuks, demons, and talking animals and everything exist in a world parallel to ours, and it's their duty to try to save that world. I have the Sitnalta series, which is more traditional fantasy about a princess coming into her own to become the queen of a kingdom, and her life is turned upside down by a magical coin that grants wishes with a twist, so things are never the way you want it to be. It kind of ruins lives and messes everything up for everybody. And there's the Children of Colonadona series, which comes after that, which is the children of some of these characters, featuring a princess and her love for a duke's daughter, which people don't really accept. And so she has to decide in this world full of magic and everything, is she going to be true to herself, or is she going to capitulate to the demands of the people around her to make everyone else happy and, in essence, ruin her own life? And I have Bath Salts, which is a zombie novel that takes place in northern Canada, written in a series of diary entries between 2 best friends. And these best friends take different views of how best to survive the zombie apocalypse. One of them thinks surviving means by any means necessary, and the other one thinks that surviving means you have to keep your humanity intact. And these 2 visions start to conflict with one another. And I wrote that book with one of my best friends, Anne Tran, who's a fellow panda at Panda Moon. And we're working on something else, which is like a horror paranormal romance. It started off as a romance short story, but when I suggested it to her, she said, I'll write it only if we can kill the characters over and over again in horrible ways. And I said, sure, why not? So, yeah.
I think I would enjoy writing with Andrew. I tend to kill people lots of ways and more than once. So all of us have written something that is perhaps a little counterintuitive to our characters. I mean, most of us are pretty normal people, although some may debate that about a few of us. We'll keep that debate in the comments, please. And by the way, please comment and get your comments as part of the show. We do enjoy that interaction from you guys. Questions, things that you want to contribute. We'll keep popping those up on the screen as we chat. But I've often met horror writers or paranormal writers, and I'm thinking, these are really nice people. You hear some super nice stories about like Stephen King. He's like this really nice guy, and he writes this like horrifying stuff. What do you think it is about nice, normal people that feel like we need to go out into this world of where things are maybe a little frightening, kind of going against what people would normally walk into, and yet here we are creating those things? So talk amongst yourselves. Go with that thought. What do you think that is?
First of all, what is normal? You know,
Right,
Apparently it's
exactly.
a place in wherever that is.
I equate the word normal with average, and I've never wanted to be average. So,
Me
you know, I've
I
always
agree.
I've always tried to push the outer edge of the envelope a little bit. I also think that that writing the weird stuff kind of vents it out of our system, so that, you know, we're
I
actually
agree with
too exhausted after writing this stuff, you know, emotionally drained. So then we seem normal to everybody else.
That's right. Yeah, it's a great explanation.
Yeah, I mean, I think with regards to me, I don't think I've ever heard normal applied to how I'm described. I mean, I've heard airy fairy, I've heard all sorts of things, but I've said that normal's boring, so why strive to be boring? And
Exactly.
That's right.
and especially like in today's world, to kind of take what we're seeing around us and find an outlet to twist it, to work with it. It kind of helps me personally, at least, work through all the issues around me and work through the stresses and stuff if I can just put it down on paper.
I agree with that. I tend to take, I do some of my best death scenes when I've had a really bad day. And it's like, I have to be in that headspace to write that and to really kill somebody off effectively, or just have this like vicious character. I always enjoy writing Celine for that reason. I mean, she's just nasty and just vicious and seems to really enjoy that about herself. And it's great to have somewhere to funnel that. And Dudley, stop.
So do you-
Puppy is
Do
whining.
you keep a hit list, you know, somewhere that, you know?
Somebody asked me that one time. They said, you know, do you just like write in all of the people into, you know, Celine's list of just vicious crimes? And I'm going, not specifically, but I think you could probably, you if you were there when I was writing that scene, then there was probably, you know, something specific that happened that day. But I think it's therapeutic in a lot of ways. And, you know, people ask me all the time about, you know, writing something that's so dark, and they're like, you're such a perky person. And it's okay. I mean, yeah. And like Elgin said, I mean, I feel like it needs somewhere to go, because I think we all kind of have that darkness within. It's just what we choose to do with it. And it's fun kind of psychologically just exploring that side a little bit and knowing it's not going to take over your life, but it's like, oh, this is part of the human experience, is having that dark side, but being able to channel that into something productive is definitely interesting.
Until the characters creep into your dreams and say, hey, why haven't you written
What did
something
you
today?
do?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything to you. I'm just sitting here on the page, minding my own business, and you just killed me off, lady. What's wrong with you? Yeah. When the voices in your head start criticizing your work.
I'm not really dead.
That's right. That's right. While we've got Alicia's comment up here, and we're kind of thinking about all those things that are that darkness within, scary books. Do you guys read scary stories? Do you have one that kind of helps you to inspire you, channel all of this stuff? What's your answer to Alicia's question? The scariest book you've read?
When I was 12, my parents kind of figured if I was reading, it had to be good, because they didn't conceive that books could have a rating system like movies. So the thicker the book, the better it was, because I kept out of everyone's hair and I was reading. So reading's a good thing. And so when I was around 12 years old, I picked up Stephen King's It.
I was about to say, when you said bigger the book, I thought this is the biggest one I know.
Yeah, and that one very quickly made its way through the grade 6 classroom, thanks to me. And so I had a very...
You corrupted an entire grade level.
I did, and it was one of my powder moments. But
nightmares and all.
But at the time, in my bedroom, I had this clown hanging from the ceiling on a swing that was given to me by one of my grandmothers, and it was over a vent. So whenever the air conditioner would go, it would actually go back and forth. And instead of having normal eyes, they were just painted black, like just black holes in its head. And so after like a few weeks or so, it's just like, no. And I shoved it under the bed. So then I had to concoct this whole system of leaping from the bed to get to the bathroom, just in case it was still under there. My parents were like, where'd it go? I'm like, oh, I think I outgrew clowns.
I have a similar story of a... You go ahead.
Oh, I'm more of a short story fan than a novel or something, but short story that really hit me like a sledgehammer when I was a kid is The October Game by Ray Bradbury, if any of you are familiar with that. And it's takes place at Halloween, okay, and it's about sort of very nasty Halloween prank a guy plays as his marriage comes to an end and stuff. And I still remember the last line of the story, and it's just like, wow, because again, it sets up the horrible ending that happened after the last line. And so it's like you're the one who does that.
Oh, I love Edgar Allan Poe for many, many reasons, but one of them is that, I have had the opportunity for years to teach Edgar Allan Poe to my students. And one of the things that I love about what he does in his short stories is the unnamed narrator. And so by not giving the narrator a name, and it's in this first person, you don't have much about the narrator, that as you read through this story, the narrator becomes you. And so it's this psychological twist that now all of this is happening to you, because it's the I, first person, with no other defining characteristics. So it becomes very, very easy to put that narrator on as yourself. And I love that. He's, to me, one of the most brilliant and most frightening, because it is absolutely the human condition that he's dealing with. And we all have those same fears that he plays on so beautifully. And I love being able to share the psychology of fear, and just, that whole psychology around horror and fictional writing it all comes down to human instincts. And when you can kind of nail that human instinct down and really play with it, then you can create some really frightening things that are going to appeal to a lot of people, because we all share those same instincts. So for me, I'm just like you, Mike. It's not necessarily novels that get me. I love the precision of a really good scary short story, and how every word has to count, every word has to matter. Oh, he's not scared, Christine. He's whining because he thinks he needs my undivided attention all the time. He has had every snack in the house. That's deadly. We'll let him be frightened if that helps the atmosphere, but just letting you know, he's fine. He's spoiled, but he's fine.
I think
what about you guys?
I think one of the things Poe did that was, he was more of a mystery writer on some level, because he engages the reader to solve the mystery. But his innovation was, instead of doing it from a detective's point of view, he's doing it from the killer's point of view, so that so that you're actually in the mind of somebody who has a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm. I love that's the whole, and we talk about that in class too. We talk about the psychopath mentality and the mentality of a serial killer and how it's that one little thing, that one little characteristic that they tend to pin on all of their victims, whether it's real or imagined, and they can blow one thing out of proportion, and how close to the edge most of us actually kind of teeter between sanity and insanity, how quickly and how easily it is to be pushed over that edge. And he just does a beautiful job pushing what could be very normal people right over the brink. And it's kind of interesting when you start thinking about how close we are. I tell them all the time, I said, if you were to put a normal person's brain and a serial killer's brain under a microscope, they're exactly the same. So then we start talking about what makes people do that. And I think that's a fascinating thing that, as writers, that we kind of think about too with our characters. It's like, what is it about this character? What is it psychologically that's going to make them do these things? And kind of having a chance to play with that and to really explore that. Ileana, what about you? What scary books have you read?
I don't read anything scary. I'm a very visual person. Even if I see a commercial on TV for a scary movie, I have to get out of the room.
How can that be? You grew up in Transylvania. I mean,
no, Transylvania was northeast from where I was, but it was good. And I did go and visit Dracula's castle, by the way. I was a teenager.
Oh, I want to go.
Weekend trip.
Me too.
Christine, after New Orleans, that's where we're going. We're going to Transylvania.
It is on. We're going.
It was quite an experience. It was.
I bet.
We're going to take Ileana with us. We're all going.
Yep.
She's our tour guide. Let's go.
I'll tour you.
All right,
that's
we're taking
probably
a trip.
the closest I came to anything scary, because I just don't do well with scary. I'm very impressionable. Like I said, everything I see, hear, read, I visualize it.
Yeah.
And that's
the
scary.
same way. I love it. I love it.
I'm at the point where if I see around Halloween, they have in stores all kinds of decorations, and sometimes they put their fake spider web at the cashiers. I walk out the store, I'm not buying anything. I'm not coming near that stuff.
That's so funny. I love it. Here, Dudley, say hello to the people. This is the loudmouth. This is Dudley. Dudley
Just want
needs
some
attention. Here we go. Look, there's the people. Oh, clearly he is enthralled by our conversation. Can't you tell? Yawning at the people. What is wrong with you?
He's just
There
glad
you go.
to
He's
get some
fine.
attention.
Yes, he's absolutely fine. Nancy's got, sorry, hit Christine's again. Nancy's got a question. Do you have any real life inspirations that help give you ideas on writing your book? So real life inspiration for these books. Christine does. I know she does. Tell us about it.
So I was at work, and one of my employees asked if I would write a book about vampires. So I told her no.
No.
I did promise her I would write her a book. So I did base the book around the people I worked with. They were my inspiration. Each character is detailed after each one of my employees. So
Wow. And they know this.
And they know this. So I mean, if one of them died, obviously they must have made me mad in some kind of way. But
just so Christine's employees,
right?
Your days are numbered.
As a surprise, I did put a vampire in the book just for her, and he ended up being the favorite character. So
of course,
she got what she wanted.
So Christine and I both worked in retail, right? I'm retired now, but Christine and I both are from retail management backgrounds. So anybody that's in retail management, it is like a training ground to be a writer. Okay.
Okay.
He's not wrong.
Absolutely. You find lots of people you want to kill off.
Yeah. Where do you think my
The person who
characters
gave
come
you
from?
boob money. Christine's got this horrible thing about people who keep money in their bras.
Oh,
Follow Christine
It's
on
awful.
social media. You'll hear many rants about boob sweat money. Those people she kills off right at the beginning of the book. They don't
Yeah,
use last.
somebody gives her a hard time. Some customer gives her a hard time. She takes out a little notebook, puts their name down, description.
and then I thank him in the acknowledgement. So yeah, like you know who you are. Thanks for the money.
See, this answers the question: why do nice people write? It's because we're too nice to actually do it in our real life.
Exactly.
So this is our alter ego escapes.
Yes.
I love it. That's perfect. We're the smile and nod people, but then we just
Especially, I worked in sales for 13 years. Like you said, you work retail. I worked in sales, so yeah, the customer's always right. You smile. It's nothing else you can do. You have to, right?
Yeah, and then
You just remember later and write it down.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I've come to the conclusion that the customer is not always right, but the customer thinks they're always right.
Okay.
There you go.
They're entitled to be right.
Uh-huh. Now,
Well-
Betty's got a question for us. I'm going to kind of put this up here, and Betty, I'm not putting you off here. I'm going to actually tell you that the Paranormal Experiences show and our Ghost Stories show is going to be the Wednesday before Halloween. So we're going to save up our paranormal experiences, and we're going to share those with you guys. I know Elgin and Christine are going to join me then, and hopefully I'll have a bunch more of my Panda friends and some other authors that would like to join us and share some of those paranormal experiences. So, Betty, hang on. We got those coming for you, love. I promise. Elise, what about you?
With regards to the other question, like real life stuff, well, I know that similar to Christine, half my hit list in bath salts came from the cast of a show I was in while I was writing that book. I was doing a community theater production of Fiddler on the Roof, where I was Seidel, and it was directed by my brother Brian Lee. And there were all these people in the cast, and times when they weren't listening to the director, weren't listening on stage, like were biffing their lines or whatever else, or just acting out backstage. I was just like, all right, Jordan. Things bitten off today. And just like all sorts of stuff like that. So, and also real life experience. My Dybbuk Scrolls trilogy was inspired by my grandmother, my Booby, because she raised me on tales of Jewish folklore. So that's where I kind of got all those ideas from. And so while other people were listening to like Cinderella or Little Red Riding Hood, I was being told that my bed couldn't be a certain way in my room because otherwise the Dybbuks would come in and steal my soul in the middle of the night. So I would just be like mentally taking notes, and it took a while, but I was like, okay, I'm going to properly research this because I think I could put this into a series for people to read. So that's
I love that cultural twist on it. Now, is that something that you've had to explain to people, to the readers, or is this something that's really been kind of embraced by them? Because I know the Jewish folklore isn't, that's not something I have a lot of experience with. It's fascinating, and it's very, very interesting concept for a book, but how do you approach that where people don't necessarily have the knowledge of the folklore? It's like they do the more traditional one.
I have a glossary at the end of each of the books, because the chapter headings and the words used in a lot of the chapters are either in Yiddish or Hebrew, so people could very easily go back and forth and look it up as they go. And also, because my Bubby was a Holocaust survivor, the afterwards and the prologues are bits of her story to kind of tell what she went through and where I got my ideas from and everything. So because the main characters in the series come from our world, a lot of it is new to them as well. So there is a lot of natural explaining going on as it goes. And there have been some films and some other things looking into Dybbuk and Jewish folklore over the years, and I try not to watch them as much as I'm interested in them, because whenever anything cultural gets Hollywoodized, the things that they get wrong kind of drive me crazy. I mean, there was one, I think it was called The Unborn, and Gary Oldman is in it, and he plays a rabbi. I love him too, but the man can't speak Hebrew to save his life. And he's like trying to perform a Jewish exorcist in the middle of this whole thing. And I'm sitting there going, no, that's not the word. That's not how it's said. Please stop. So he tried. He tried his best, I'm sure. But, man.
I love it. I love it. Well, I've got my "Thou Shall Not Try Me" shirt on today for my paranormal. So, you know, yes, Christine Davis, we will write you into a grave if you don't make us mad. I wear this shirt on the first day of school. I'm teaching virtually this year, so I didn't get to do it, but I wear my "Thou Shall Not Try Me" shirt on the first day of school and the first day back from winter break and the first day after spring break, just as a little visual reminder to my 8th graders. Thou shall not try me. Of course, once they found out that I write paranormal mystery and horror, then all of a sudden it became a whole other threat. Got a whole lot more clout now than I used to. I wear that shirt like, oh, that's bad news, bad day. One of the things that I want to, as we're kind of leading around, we're dancing around Betty's question here about our paranormal stories. But I want to talk about our New Orleans history and mystery. And as we kind of get into this, maybe we'll bring up some stories that we have that kind of go along with this. We'll talk about Crescent City Sin a little bit later. You guys already, you know, my regular viewers here, you know about Crescent City Sin coming out in October. And we're going to show some covers from these guys. We'll talk a little bit more about what they've got going on right here as we kind of end the show a little bit. But for now, we have got our New Orleans mystery and history. So I'm going to tell you a little New Orleans history and a little bit about a place called Muriel's. And so Muriel's, if you've ever been to the French Quarter, we teased this story a little bit last show. If you've ever been to the French Quarter and you stood there facing the cathedral, on either side of the cathedral are the twin buildings of the Presbytere and the Cabildo. Next to the Presbytere, on the corner of St. Anne, is Muriel's Restaurant. And you probably recognize the building if you've been down there anytime, recently or anytime. This is Muriel's. Fabulous restaurant, by the way. Absolutely awesome. And yes, you can actually eat up there on the balcony. It's when the weather's nice, what a great way to get kind of a bird's eye view of the quarter. But the food and the atmosphere is not why we're talking about Muriel's. Well, atmosphere a little bit here. We're talking about Pierre Jourdain's ghost in our story today. And so to tell you just a little bit about the house. It's a very old house. It was owned by various people, including the Destrahans and the Marniers, who are, of course, the Faubourg Marnier is one of the most famous neighborhoods down there, very brightly colored neighborhood, beautiful place. Also the home of Marie Laveau is down there in the Marnier. But after the fire, there's big, New Orleans fires were, notorious. There's a couple of really big ones that took down a lot of stuff. One of them happened on Good Friday, and the priest would not allow the bells to be rung because Good Friday the bells must be silent, and of course the church bells were used as a fire alarm, and the priest wouldn't allow the bells to be rung, and of course this massive part of New Orleans burned down as a result. So thank you, Father, whoever you were, who made that decision. But one of the owners that was partly responsible for kind of bringing that building back to life after a couple of episodes where it fell into disrepair was Pierre Jourdain. And Jourdain absolutely loved that house. It was, his pride and joy. So if you imagine living here as a home right there in the middle of the French Quarter, and he adored that home, spent so much time restoring it. But as much as Jourdain enjoyed his home, he also enjoyed gambling. Starting to see where this is going. Jordan bet his precious home. Apparently, Jordan was not as good at gambling as Jordan thought, and he lost. He lost the house, and rather than be torn away from his precious home that he loved so much, before turning it over to other people, he went up to the second floor and he committed suicide in the home. So he never did have to leave his precious house, and apparently never has. The second floor Seance Lounges are where, one of the Seance Lounges is where Jordan actually killed himself. And this is where Jordan is apparently spends most of his time. So he's still there. He still hangs out in the house. And there will be seances that are held in the Seance Lounges and trying to conjure him. The staff will find things that have been moved around. You know, they'll close up for the night. They'll come back the next day. Things are in a different place. But Jordan will appear every now and then, but he tends to appear simply as this kind of shimmering mist that is just in different places, either in the Seance Lounge or down at one of the special tables for him. And so this photograph is apparently Jordan, who's joining these people for dinner. So he does that once in a while with folks. But one of the most interesting things about Muriel's is the fact that Jordan is not necessarily a mischief maker other than moving things around, but then you have to think it is his house. So maybe he just likes things a certain way. So they welcome him just like he welcomes other people into his house, and he kind of sits down and has dinner with them. But once in a while, there have been things like glassware that has been thrown across the bar. So like 12 feet from the bar to shattering across the room, like on a wall, just, really thrown. That's happened a few times. They don't think that that's Jordan. They think that that's perhaps servants or someone who is there, or somebody from one of the other time periods that's just letting off a little steam. Nothing too serious has happened. But one of the things that is particularly of note at Muriel's, and the fact that New Orleans tends to just embrace their dead, is every single day when the restaurant opens, there is a table set for Monsieur Jordan, complete with bread and wine. So this is known as the ghost table because Mr. Jordan is kind enough to allow others into his home, and so they set the table for him. And so that is Muriel's and the seance rooms, and of course Mr. Jordan's table there. And you can actually eat at the ghost table. You can reserve that table, and you have to reserve it pretty far in advance, but you can reserve that table and have dinner with Monsieur Jordan. So that's kind of fun. So we've got New Orleans ghost stories, and we always like to kind of bring in things. So there are numerous restaurants in New Orleans which are said to have ghosts. I guess New Orleanians love their food, whether they're alive or dead. Commander's Palace is said to be haunted and has a ghost of its own as well. So maybe not, without getting into big paranormal experiences and big ghost stories, what is a haunted place you've always wanted to go? Who's got a haunted place you've always wanted to go?
I feel like there's so many. You know what? I'd really like to go to Waverly. Waverly is one of the most haunted places in the United States, and I just think it would be terrifying to spend the night there. It would just be to experience the different things that happen in this place. And I would love to go there. Salem, Massachusetts, I'd like to go. Do the witch walk and go to the cemeteries and different things like that. I actually have a lot of family history from Salem, so
we'll have to go. That's another trip to add to our list, Christine, because I've always wanted to go to Salem too.
Well, then
I got to go to Sleepy Hollow, but not Salem. Sleepy Hollow was kind of cool too, but not quite the magnitude that Salem would be. Salem's out. Look, Holly Ward's going to go.
Salem would be fantastic.
Holly's like, let's go.
All right, let's go. We should go around Halloween.
Let's go, Holly. Ooh, I bet we'd have to book like way in advance, but yes, we definitely should do that. Absolutely.
Yes.
So anybody else got anywhere haunted that they want to go, or places that you would absolutely avoid at all costs? Because now Leisha says that she's never going to Muriel's. She's like, nope, passing on that restaurant. Like, no. Oh, come on. Jordan would just love to. I know he would. You're such a nice lady.
There were a couple of haunted houses on my dad's farm. Haunted houses. So, I mean, I told a story in another session where we discovered that the marble steps in the on the porch were actually tombstones from a cemetery on the property, which explained why the house was haunted. And I was in a rock band when I was in high school, and we decided we were going to record a rock opera, and we used one of the houses that was being remodeled. And for our studio, we put up mattresses and everything, try to deaden the sound because the echoes were terrible. But we decided we were going to camp out in that house, overnight. And about 2:00 in the morning, the weird noises and everything in the house got to the point where everybody else refused to stay the rest of the night there. So we ended up getting in our cars and going down to my house, which was about an eighth of a mile away, and we just camped out on the living room floor.
That's, I think, where I would probably have. I don't know. I'd like to say that I would be brave enough to go do this, and I am staying in a haunted hotel room. We'll see how well my bravery holds out. I mean, I've been to some haunted places. I have. I mean, we did ghost tours at the Myrtles Plantation, which is one of the most haunted houses in America. And we've done some pretty, I love being in New Orleans where I feel like you just walking down the street, you're in a haunted place. I mean, that's kind of how it is. So, I mean, I guess I could kind of handle it, but we'll see how I do overnight in a haunted hotel room. I don't know.
There are more ghosts in New Orleans than there are living people.
I firmly believe that. I think you're absolutely right about that. You never feel alone in that city. You feel like, you should talk to whatever is in this space next to you because you're just walking in. Hanging out.
I was in England recently with Anne. It was her sister's wedding and I was her +1. And we'd been told that a lot of the guests were considered camping out overnight in an abandoned church or convent or something that was supposed to be super haunted, and that it was just going to be this cool, fun evening thing. And Anne and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, do you want ghosts? Because that's kind of how you get ghosts. So we're going to pass on that one. But here in Toronto, on the other end of the coin, before the pandemic, ages ago, my husband was like, so we should go out for dinner before this show. Where do you want to go? And I was like, oh, we're going to the Keg Mansion, which the Keg is like a chain of steak restaurants here. And one of them is put in this old mansion downtown. That's supposed to be one of the most haunted buildings in the city. And I was like, no, we're eating there. So we went, and apparently there have been people who have seen apparitions of someone hanging from a chandelier, and there are unexplained cold spots and all this weird stuff that goes on in there. So we went there for dinner that night. I didn't see anything, but I found some areas just to be weirdly a completely different temperature than other parts of the room. So I was like, okay, close enough. So,
experience had. Time to go.
We're good.
So, talking about creepy things. All right, guys, here's where you come in the comments. We're going to talk about, for our Louisiana Lagniappe, and I don't know that I explained this last time. Lagniappe is simply a Louisiana word for a little something extra. It's kind of like the 13th donut in a baker's dozen. But we're talking about the worst Halloween candy. So we're going to weigh in on what we think is the worst Halloween candy, candy you don't want in your bucket or your sack on Halloween. So defend your choice. You have to tell us why you think that candy should be ranked as the worst Halloween candy. And you guys in the comment section over here, you can weigh in on this too. If you agree with us, if you think we've missed one, let us know. I'll be keeping an eye on there. So, Elgin, why don't you get us started since you're over here, like right next to me? What do you think is the worst?
I always hated to get bit of honey. I actually like it. I actually like it now, but back then it was like the word. I would never eat it. And when my kids were going out trick or treating, they used to get Dum Dum Pops a lot, and those are okay, but they're so small. And I told my youngest daughter that for every Dum Dum Pop that you eat, you have to eat some Smarties to offset the. And of course, she was young and innocent enough at the time that she actually believed me. So.
Oh God, that's funny. Christine, what do you think?
You guys ever had those wafers? You know what I'm talking about? Is it the Necco wafers?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
No.
It's like eating chalk.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh,
here,
yeah.
just eat it on a chalkboard. Here, just eat one. Like,
That's funny. I didn't know the name Necco wafer until you said it tastes like chalk, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, I know it tastes like chalk.
Yeah, these are the things that you eat last out of all your candy, right?
And the things you try to trade with your kid brother like before he's old enough to know the difference. Elise, what do you think? What's the worst Halloween candy?
I may be dating myself because I've never seen these in my kids' buckets, but when I was a kid, I always hated getting them. It had to be a tie between, I don't know if you've ever seen them, the candy wax lips.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, Christine just said that in the comments.
And the Popeye cigarettes.
Oh, the Popeye cigarettes. We didn't get those.
Yeah, they're
I remember
these
those.
little
They
candy
like the-
sticks in a box, and it was like you would pretend to smoke them. But they were like these waxy, chalky candy things that were just disgusting.
Oh gosh, that's bad. Juliana, what about you? Now you may have a totally different take on this.
Very different. I didn't grow up with Halloween.
Right.
The first time I experienced Halloween was in my 30s. So I can't say I had, something from my childhood hunting me. But trying the candies that, I've seen people buying at the store. I don't have kids either, so I couldn't have them bringing home candies. I tried the candy corn. Is that how it's called? Those little corns.
Yeah.
I don't like them. They taste like flour, not like a candy. They're not even.
They're made like honey.
Tastes nothing like corn.
No.
Like corn
Anyway.
Now,
flour.
have you ever put my favorite thing? Now, I gotta say, there's only one way that I like candy corn. I like candy corn mixed with peanuts, and you just like eat them together, peanuts and candy corn. Now that's good. That's like I know it's fall when I can have a little Tupperware container of candy corn and peanuts, and it's just like walk by and take, but I'm not gonna eat candy corn by itself. Like that's just too much. It's like sugar and no taste. And I guess they're made with honey, but they're just not really all that sweet. But you put them in. They skip the honey. They're not that sweet. But I guess that's why they go well with peanuts, because it's kind of like basically like a honey roasted peanut. But you got to have more peanuts than candy corn for that to really work out, right?
Again, it's probably due to the fact that I grew up in a different place, that I don't like the same things. Like I don't like peanut butter. I don't like caramel. I don't like nuts and chocolate together. I like them both separate, but not together.
You don't like Nutella?
I hate Nutella.
I love it. I love Nutella.
You see?
I've never had Nutella.
That's a European thing. I mean, they in Italy they have like big jars of this that they sell, and it's popular here, but it's not. It's not as big of a phenomenon.
My daughter makes breakfast sandwiches out of it.
Oh yeah,
Mine does too.
I actually make.
My kids love it.
So do mine.
I'm the only wacko, I think, in the world probably that doesn't like Nutella.
Well, they actually
speak up in the comments. Don't make me feel so bad.
Yeah,
They
that's
actually
how I
made
feel
that-
about caramel. Nobody
they actually
believes
made
me.
that
Why don't
during,
you like caramel?
Yeah.
They actually made it during World War II because there was a shortage of chocolate, so they were using the hazelnut to stretch the chocolate that was in it.
So, Juliana, I have to ask you then, since you didn't grow up with Halloween, did you have a holiday that sort of celebrated the dead, or something similar? So nothing that was like, hey, dead
in the Romanian folklore, death is something very tragic. It's a lot of crying and screaming, and it's a very sad moment. So it's not something they particularly celebrate. So
that's interesting. So this had to have been really weird when you came over here, and there's this whole day where we're just like, break out the dead.
Yeah, it's a different culture, and I can see the appeal for it, when you talk kids. But me coming here as an adult, I just can't get into it. I tried.
Yeah, I love Halloween, but I think that the draw to it, and kind of where it sort of started was, if you can mock death, then you don't have to fear death. If you can mock the things that scare you, then you don't have to fear those things. And so I think it came, kind of more from that. And then I'm sure, pulled in a whole lot of the Dia de los Muertos and there too, revering the dead as well. But
in Halloween's defense, we also did not have Valentine's Day. I did not even hear about Valentine's Day until I came and lived in Toronto. So
don't worry about that one. That's a Hallmark holiday.
I think all Americans are always looking for a holiday.
Well, now, like today, they're probably celebrating it, and they probably adopted, all these holidays. But when I was there 20 some years ago, they didn't. We did not know what they were.
I can totally appreciate that. I love that I like the cultural differences here, that we get to actually see what's going on in other places, and the fact that everybody didn't have Halloween. Like, I kind of thought there was something like that in every culture. I didn't realize that there were places that just simply wasn't a thing. That's interesting.
Kids going at the door and knocking for candies and sweets, that usually happens before Christmas, when they come in and they sing carols and all that stuff, and then around New Year's. But other than that, no.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that. So, Mike, what's your least favorite Halloween candy?
Well, I was going to say candy corn, but I was pretty upset.
Thank you.
But I'll tell you something happened when I took my kids trick-or-treating. I'll never forget this one year. We went to this house, and instead of candy, they gave him a brochure for Upward Basketball.
Basketball brochures for Halloween candy.
Yeah, so some church's basketball program or something like that.
Advertising.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time.
I remember getting a hard-boiled egg one time.
Okay.
Well, at least you got something healthy.
So I've got two, and I have a hard time deciding between the two. It's either circus peanuts. What the heck are those things anyway? Like,
they're marshmallows.
Those are just terrible. Or those candy things that are either like orange or black, and they're in like a wrapper, and like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. It's this gross, weird, it sort of tastes like peanuts and then not. I don't know what that is, but that's horrible. So I'm not sure about either of those. Somebody else mentioned black licorice. Yes, black licorice is horrible too.
I love black licorice.
Oh God, I
love it.
I think it's one of those things you either love or you hate. Like, I'm not sure that there's a gray area on black licorice. I think they are very divided.
I'm not a big fan. I'll eat red licorice, but not black.
Nola, with the circus peanuts, a friend of mine once said circus peanuts were old man's candy. Okay,
Oh,
so
man's candy.
the fact that you don't like circus peanuts, that means you're a young person. You're young at heart.
Oh, good. Well, there you go. That's why I don't like circus peanuts. All right, so you guys that are watching this a little bit later, go ahead and leave your worst candies and those nightmarish things we've all gotten in our trick or treat bags in the comments. Liz Nancy said that her kids got a small bag of salt and vinegar chips. Now I would have dug down on some salt and vinegar chips. I love salt and vinegar chips.
Yeah.
And she wants to know, were you with other kids when you got the hard-boiled egg, and did they also get one, or is this really Charlie Brown scenario?
I was with my sister, and she also got one too, and she thought it was weird. So.
That's the inner nutritionist home.
They do all this crap. It's like you go to the dentist's house and they give you a new toothbrush or a little travel thing of toothpaste. Like, oh God. Oh my gosh. Well, I really want to thank you guys for hanging out with me today. And we have had such a good time. It's been a lot of fun having you. I want to make sure that the folks kind of get a look at your books and what you've got coming out. I just those of you who had many books, I just picked some because I just wanted folks to have a visual of some of the things that they can be looking for on Amazon as they're checking you guys out or wherever great books are sold. So we've got books from all of our authors here. Check them out. Support your authors. It is such a tough time right now for authors to do anything to get the word out. So thank you so much to High Society for allowing us to hang out on their page. We're at Nola's Second Line next week. We are going to be on The Right Review on September 9th with Rhea Fry and Vanessa Lilly, and Aaron McDonald is going to be joining us there as well. So we have got some great shows coming up for you this month. I hope you guys, thank you for being on the show. I hope that you join us in the comments on some of the other shows because it really is fun to be able to hang out with people on both sides of the screen and just get to visit for a while and get the word out. So folks, if you had a good time tonight, support your local authors, support your Facebook authors and friends. And these are all great people. They're nice people who write scary, weird things. Go support them in that endeavor. Give them avenues to challenge and just channel all of the things that perhaps otherwise would end up being thrown back in their customers' faces. So,
and if you want more books, then by supporting us, you're going to enable us to write more and work less.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. Write more, drink less, or drink while you write.
Hemingway,
write drunk, edit sober.
And we promise not to kill you in the next chapter.
That's right. If you buy our books, we will not write you into the grave.
Unless you want us to.
Yeah. I mean, we could take suggestions. This is also another route we could go. So if you want us to kill you off, buy our book, comment on the videos, follow us on social media, tell us exactly how you want to die, and we might make that happen for you.
Yes, we will do that.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got all kinds of ways to do that.
Oh, yes.
I see a contest brewing here.
Yes. we could do that. We could absolutely do that. We should start that. That would be fun. We need to get some authors together, figure out how we want to do this. We can start killing people off. Let's start killing off the viewers.
No, they're the customers.
No, we're only killing off the boob money people, the sweat money people that Christine like. Their stories are some of the best.
The worst is the ladies that have coupons stuffed down and when you're in the grocery store.
That's so rough. I'm sorry, but they deserve what they got in the book. If that's what they're gonna do. Well, we're coming up on an hour. I don't want to take any more of your evening away than we already have, but thank you so much for spending your evening with us. This has been a joy, so much fun having all five of you on the show. I appreciate it so much, and I know that those that are watching that have been with us in the comments and that will watch this later appreciate the time that you've given as well. So thank you so much for making this.
Thanks for having us, and everybody tell Christine Gabriel's daughter happy birthday.
Happy
Happy birthday. Have a great day.
Happy Sweet 16.
Oh, great.
Amen. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to pop back in, or at least I will, and I hope that these guys will too, pop back into the comments over on Nola's Second Line and on High Society and chat with you guys a little bit more in the comments there. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great week. We will see you next Wednesday.
Goodbye.
That was fun.